Hi, welcome back to the Corner Perspective. I'm Bruce Spangler, CEO of the Volunteer Ministry Center. Located at the corner of Broadway and Fifth Avenue, the Volunteer Ministry Center is committed to ending and preventing homelessness. Today we're visiting Minvilla Manor, which is our permanent supportive housing opportunity for individuals who are chronically homeless, but also presupposes they have a disability. And I'd like to introduce you now to one of our housing case managers here at Minvilla Manor, Dustin Heffner. Dustin, thank you for joining with me today on our Corner Perspective. You're one of the housing case managers here at Minvilla. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, our job is to try to provide as much supportive services as possible to our residents here. And what that can look like really just depends upon the circumstances of the resident when they move in. It depends upon their mental health, their physical health, any support they may already have in place. And then we try to fill in the gaps with as much support as we possibly can to both keep them here, keep them housed, and try to improve the quality of their life.
Very good. How long can someone live here?
As long as they need to. There's no end date for folks who live here. It's not like it's not a transitional program. So it's not just you're here for a year or 2 years. You're here as long as you want to be, as long as you're able to live here. Yeah, really, it's just as long as folks are comfortable living here, as long as they want to live here.
Sure,
happy doing so.
I can imagine that you have quite a bit of people that you work with. How many do you work with?
At the moment, I have 27 people on my caseload.
27 residents.
Yes.
Wow. I guess they all have their own needs and particular concerns, don't they?
They do, yes. Every individual's case plan is different. We kind of cater the case plan to the client and to the resident, just depending on the needs that they have. So some folks may be a lot farther along in certain areas than others are. So we may need to work more intensively with certain individuals on certain goals or certain needs, setting up certain support services. Other folks may be fairly far along on that and need less assistance with that kind of stuff and can handle more things on their own. So it just really depends upon the individual.
You said earlier that with support services that folks are able to maintain housing, but what other successes, if I may, or improvements have you seen in some residents?
Well, we have other residents who have, like one resident in particular, we can call him John. But that's not his real name. When I first started working at the VMC years ago, almost 10 years ago at this point, he had been homeless for probably the better part of 15, 20 years. Really severely mentally ill, but just had never gotten the services he needed. Once we started working with him and he became a resident here at Minvilla, he started getting mental health treatment, was able to get the medical care that he needed, and is now one of our most involved residents here. He comes to all of our events. He's someone that everyone recognizes. He gets along well with everyone. He started working with a group called Circles of Support several years ago and has become more integrated into just the community at large, not just here at Minvilla. But is able to go to church with them, sees them weekly, and have what folks would call friends. They're just normal, everyday friends that they like spending time with. So to see a transition from something like that, once getting supportive services, to where he once was. And in jail all the time, in hospitals, sleeping on the streets, literally in cardboard boxes, to being a resident here for going on 7 years now is quite the transition.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, the Volunteer Ministry Center is committed to kind of a housing first model, where that we understand housing to be a tool for recovery as opposed to a reward or a carrot, so to speak. So given that, it sounds like that John experienced a place to recover for a variety of things.
Yes, and I think he's not the only one in that sense. I think that especially for folks who have been homeless for so long, there's an adjustment period of getting comfortable. If you haven't been in housing for 10, 15 years, it takes some adjustment to become accustomed to living in an apartment by yourself when you've been sleeping in a shelter with 200 other people every night, for instance. But I think we found that given time and given the support and just being accepting of people here, folks are able to kind of get into the community on their own terms and come to trust both us and other residents and become more comfortable about making changes, becoming more willing into making the positive changes in their life that they need to.
One last question. Minvilla opened in the fall of 2010. So we'll be celebrating our 7th anniversary the latter part of this year. I noticed that over half of the residents who live here are the folks who first moved in. So that longevity, what would you attribute that to?
I think it's just the community. Honestly, the biggest part would be the community we've built here, and that includes both the staff and the residents. A lot of the residents who moved in here, when we first opened the building, are really proud of this place. And for so many of our folks who are chronically homeless, which means they've been homeless for so long, they really appreciate what they have here. And a lot of folks, like you find after a while, they really start to look out for each other. They really start to, help people when they see they need help, and are more understanding of folks who might have certain issues and stuff like that. Another part I think is a big part is just the staff here. Both myself and Megan, the other case manager, have both been here since we opened. So folks are comfortable with us, we're comfortable with them. We've gotten a rapport with them, and just the experience of kind of figuring out what it means to case manage this many people here. I think that just the experience of that is a big part of it as well, and kind of learning how to work in this environment.
Yeah. Well, Dustin, thank you for joining me today on The Corner Perspective, and really, really appreciate the work that both you and Megan do here.
Thank you.
You do a good job. Thank you.